We are here today with Rick Surrency and from Putnam
County.
from Putnam County in Florida, as we look at our stories from the field for our Superintendent podcast. So, Rick, how are you doing this morning?
Great. Thank you for having me with you.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So we're going to jump right in. You have done some work in Putnam that is near and dear to my heart when we think about schools and how we are looking at outcomes for students. So when you got into Putnam, we think about the crisis in the classrooms. You really worked to improve the outcome for the students in the district. So I think when you got there, you had something like 11 schools that were DRF in the Florida Accountability System, and of your total 18 schools at the time. And you were able to improve that. So, what was the most critical first step you took to begin the turnaround, and why did you prioritize that over other interventions?
Again, thank you for having me here, and I'm always glad to talk about our progress in Putnam. And yeah, when I came in, we did have a lot of challenges. Putnam is one of the lowest socioeconomic counties in the entire state. Of course, that's not any excuse; it's just a reality. But we just had to change expectations from what we've had in the past, and we came in and we had a number of schools we had to go in and try to evaluate. The number one thing was we had to install some systems that had not been there, systematic approach. And we actually started in one specific school called Mosley Elementary School. That school had been a traditional failing school, and the state required us at that time, we either had to close the school, or which you're familiar with, or we had to bring in or make it a charter school, or bring in an external operator. So we brought in an external operator. Very expensive venture, but we felt like this is what we needed. We needed some objective points of view, so we brought them in. They worked with our leadership. They worked with our teachers, and really they came in and provided some real systematic changes in the way teachers teach, and most importantly, the way students learn and the way they process information. And fast forward, we were able to bring that school out of turnaround, and really those practices, those instructional practices, we've been able to leverage those across all of our schools in the district, and which led to taking all 11 of those schools out of turnaround. And that is our way of work now, and I'm very happy with that. As a matter of fact, the principal of that school was the state principal of the year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, we've talked before, and you've referenced as you think about, some of those systems, that it's a dual prong approach, right? And so you're thinking about what you're doing in terms of leadership, how you're looking at improving instruction, but you also mentioned community engagement. And so, can you give some concrete examples of how these elements worked together for especially the school that acted as the model
Yeah.
for what you're doing with your way of work for your other schools?
That's a great question. Number one thing is you have to engage parents. Parents, especially from low socioeconomic areas, in their school careers, have not had pleasant experiences. The school has been kind of a negative to them, and that's kind of the way they looked at schools when their children were in there. So the principal we had there really went out of her way to really bring those parents in to help them be part of the process, to really share information, to get feedback from them. And again, that was at the school district wide. We have made a big effort to really reach out through our Chamber of Commerce. I'm an elected superintendent, so which I know we can talk about sometime, but I go to different community activities because I want our school to not work in a vacuum. I want us to be part of the community, because to me, the way the schools goes, the way the community goes. So just bringing those parents in, as a matter of fact, when that school was turned around, we actually had a celebration where we closed the street in front of the school and we danced in the street, and the parents came, and it was really a beautiful scene.
Yeah. So there's some other things that we're going to talk about, but you segued into being an elected superintendent, and you're one of several from Florida is actually elected. So how has being an elected superintendent changed your decision making or your way of work when you think about improving outcomes for students?
Well, first of all, the elected part, being a politician, I have to go out there and by virtue of getting in office, I have to go out there and meet with community, I have to raise money, I have to put up signs. I mean, and really, I have to be very close to the community. When I'm in office, I continue to have to really listen to the community. I mean, by virtue of if I plan on getting reelected again, I have to be able to engage those people in the community. But the number one thing comparing that and appointed superintendents, first of all, being elected, I'm in office for 4 years before I have to run again. And it allows me to really put systems in place, put initiatives in place, and not have to worry about the board, firing me in the middle of that time because the board does not hire and fire me. So I could actually put things in place for 4 years and then continue to, build on that. And to me, that's been a big advantage for me is just to be able to have the sustainability of putting initiatives in place.
Sustainability is really important, and sometimes you're able to get the work started. You're right, but you're not able to see that work through. And so when you look at some of the initiatives that you've been able to put in place, you've done a lot of work around career pathways and STEM education. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. And our community, first of all, I'll talk about our graduation rate in a minute, but really, students had to have a reason for being in schools. School needs to be relevant. So I felt like it was important to really go out and create some career and technical education programs that would really meet the needs of the local community based on employment needs. So, with a district like ours, it's very difficult to raise the capital to start these programs. So ever since I've been in office, every single year, we've been able to go to the legislature in Florida and receive legislative appropriations as seed money, and of course, money from our local community too, to get these programs started. And once you get them started, they can fund themselves through that uh, extra funding that you receive for those programs. The STEM program is also, I'm real big on preparing our kids for the future for jobs that don't exist yet. One thing we looked at was creating a K-12 STEM model where kids could be exposed to STEM early on, as early as kindergarten. So every single week, those kids, K-5, have some type of STEM elective. In sixth grade, they have a STEM class every day. And then with the idea is when they get in junior, senior high school, their motivation, their interest in STEM careers is heightened. So we want them to pursue that if they choose to do so. And we've really initiated a number of STEM programs that I'm really proud of. And um, actually, you're familiar with STEM 2 Hub out of Jacksonville. They have been a great partner with us, help provide materials and training. And yeah, we've been very successful in it.
So sometimes there is I don't want to say criticism, but there is conversation around how early we start students in terms of career pathways. Not so much STEM, we want them to be engaged in those STEM activities, but when we start talking about, CTE and those kinds of things, sometimes there are questions around those. So how have you been able to really work through some of those concerns and make certain that it's clear that this is meaningful for the students?
Well, I agree with you. I don't think kids really need to make that firm decision until they get in senior high school. But again, I feel it's important to expose them, to give them a view of what those careers are. And we start that early as elementary school, but in junior high school, sometimes these kids can take some classes, some exploratory classes, and really start to learn about these careers. So when they get into senior high school, they can make an educated choice.
So you mentioned a moment ago creating experiences for students for careers that don't even exist yet, and so it leads me to thinking about the fact that you partnered with Space Florida, and in partnering with them to prepare the students for aerospace careers again that don't exist yet. So how do you really think about working with students to have them think visionarily about jobs that may not be there yet, and what specific problem solving strategies or skills are we looking for them as we're looking to moving forward?
Yeah, and I think it really boils down to that critical thinking piece and really understanding we're preparing you for jobs that, like I say, don't exist yet, but for any jobs. I mean, there are certain things that all jobs have in common, these high demand, high wage jobs. And we want them to be able to use those innate skills that they had developed to really make those choices. And, we both know the world is changing. And when they graduate, their jobs that we have now are going to disappear. And I've seen some data that says by 2035, 65% of the jobs we have now are going to disappear. So we must prepare our kids. If not, we're doing them a disservice. And I think that one thing we've done too is we have established a portrait of a graduate in our community, and these are 6 competencies that students must be able to demonstrate when they graduate. Some of those soft skills, kind of like being resilient, being able to communicate, that type of thing. And we really focus on those skills when they're in high school to make sure not only do they get a diploma, they have those skills that we talk about for those jobs of the future.
Okay, so last question I'm going to ask around this, but this one really piqued my interest. So you have 14 different career and technical education programs for aerospace, and then I saw welding certifications, and I'm always intrigued by welding. My father was a master welder; he got his credentials through the Navy. But students in your district earn pilot licenses and aerospace certifications. Right? How do these high value credentials translate into actual employment, economic mobility for your graduates?
Well, I'm glad you asked about the aviation. I always love to talk about that. In the Jacksonville area, in the region, which you're familiar with, there is a need for commercial pilots. And not that we can train commercial pilots at the high school level, but if we can give them that ability to earn a private pilot's license, that's going to give them, first of all, we're paying for their flight hours. We do ground training, but we're also having kids flying solo now in airplanes.
Wonderful.
And that's really exciting. Those kids can go on it, and if they choose to, go on, maybe partner with an airline and really work on a commercial pilot's license. So to me, it's very exciting. And if they choose not to, that's fine. I mean, flying can be a hobby or whatever. But again, we've been able to secure funding to help these kids in high school, and we partner with Emory-Riddle and have done some, dual enrollment classes there. So it's really an exciting course that we have.
We were leading some of that work in Duval County, and I was actually left before we saw it to full fruition. But it's exciting for kids because it takes a real skill set to go in and say, "This is something that I want to dedicate, my time to." And these are all of the different things that I can do as a part of that.
Well, it's funny you say that because last week the kids who are enrolling in these classes, we take them on discovery flights.
Oh, wonderful.
So I think it's important that if you're going to be a pilot, that you're not scared to get in an airplane.
Well,
So once they get in there, they'll decide, okay, I can do this now or not.
yeah. You think about the different areas that you focused on and how specific some of those areas are. So let's talk a little bit about teacher retention and professional development because you've been able to do some really quality work in teacher retention as well. So how have you done it?
Well, we talk about the teacher shortage and all that. And I'll be honest with you, we do not have a teacher shortage because we focus on when we hire these high quality teachers, we want to keep them. And our retention efforts have been monumental. We started what we call as the novice teacher mentor program, where we actually have 4 teachers who do not have any class loads at all. They actually work with all of our 0 to 3-year teachers, and they are there at their disposal. The old model was teachers who are already teaching, they would, partner with a teacher in their school. And believe me, teachers don't have time to do that, you know, to help other teachers. So we want these teachers to be full-time. They have probably 30 teachers each that they mentor, and they help them with anything they need, even just being a friend, because we want them to feel good about teaching, feel successful. And our data is really amazing. We've gone from 65% retention rate early in my term, early in my time in office, to a 93% retention rate. And the cost, people ask, how can you afford to hire teachers that don't work in the classroom? It's because the return on investment has been amazing, because when you have to recruit another teacher, spend money to train them and all that, that's pretty expensive. So this has been a great return on investment.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean, because when you think about it and we think about the shortage, working all over the country, talking to a lot of different people and then experiencing it through school districts, I often say we don't we don't always have a recruitment issue as much as we have a retention issue. And so thinking about how you're looking to retain the teachers in that 0 to 3 years, that's when we lose them.
That's when you lose them the most.
You lose them the most. So how do the teachers, so thinking about your mentor program, how do they work with our novice teachers, the newest teachers in the classroom, really around even the emotional support that they provide for them?
One of their best friends during their time when they start teaching, and they are in their classrooms, they model for them, model teaching. But more than anything else is they're there to help them. Classroom management probably is one thing that frustrates new teachers more than anything. And they're there to advise them on classroom management, give them advice, non-evaluative. I mean, they're there as a friend and a mentor. I can remember my time as a new teacher. I felt so alone. Once that door shut, it was just me and all the kids. Well, now teaching has become a team sport. Okay. Not only do those teachers work with their mentor like 4 times a year, all of our teachers are in a professional learning community, um, where they actually meet with other teachers, their grade level or their subject area from around the district. They come together and they plan, they talk about common issues. That in itself has been a real strength in our district and really helps to, kind of sustain those high level teaching practices across our district.
Yeah. So, oftentimes our rural districts have challenges recruiting high quality teachers to the district. And so, talk to me about how you figured that out, right? You've done something that moves your retention from 65 to 93, which is commendable. But how do you attract the high quality teachers and then encourage them to stay in your district? And where is your district in terms of the districts in the area in terms of teacher salary as well?
Well, first of all, the teacher salary thing in Florida, the governor and the legislature mandated that everybody reach a minimum of 48.5, and we've done that and exceeded that. Just by negotiating, working with our unions, really focusing a lot of our resources to teachers. But the other thing is, I think we have to really attend to their needs as far as their families, their health. I'm really proud of the fact we've been able to start a clinic, a free clinic. Nothing's free, a low cost clinic. You have to be on the insurance, but we have a clinic now just for our employees where they can walk in, make an appointment and basically have no out of pocket expenses. To me, as being a young teacher, maybe out of college, healthcare is very important, especially if you have kids. So we offer that as a service. That's something we've been working on for the last 10 years, getting our insurance claims down and that type thing. But that right there is a huge recruiting tool that if a teacher can come to our district and not have to pay any out of pocket expenses, that is a big thing to attract them.
Years ago, researched this resource, and I still share it with schools now. I think it was a TNTP study that they had done, and I believe the title was "The Irreplaceables." And I still share it with school districts. And so, in that particular study or article that they had done, it talked about how not only we are retaining teachers, but we're retaining teachers that are high quality,
Mhm.
retaining the teachers that are doing the kind of work that we're looking to do with students. And it talked about that a lot of times the retention strategies are not about money. And so how do you also, and so you talked about one in terms of healthcare and making certain that the healthcare is taken care of, but how do you make certain that your teachers know that they're valued and that you want them to be a part of your district so that they stay?
That's a great question, and I'll just segue to, I had a life-changing trip back in 2022. I visited the nation of Finland,
Okay.
and, Finland has some of the highest student achievement scores in the world. So I went over there as part of the Fulbright Foundation, and we visited those schools. The fundamental difference in Finland and the United States is those teachers over there are revered. They're like we revere doctors, lawyers, engineers here. I came back with a new sense of, you know, about our teachers that we really needed to show appreciation. Um, I write personal notes to teachers. I email every single employee in our district on their birthday to wish them a happy birthday. I want them to feel valued, and I want them to feel like it's more than money, like you say. It is feeling valued. It's feeling that they have efficacy, that what they're doing is making a difference. And I think when people feel valued, that carries on more than anything else, and you feel a part of the district. And they're not just employees; they are an integral part of who we are. And every time we have an opportunity to celebrate our teachers, we do that because they're what makes our district run. And if we didn't have them, and the longer they're with us, those high quality teachers, the more value they bring to us.
And so how have you gotten like your community to engage in uplifting your teachers as well and in making certain that they are making them the rock stars that they should really be?
Well, we have a foundation,
Okay.
and the foundation spends a lot of time and money rewarding teachers, offering them scholarships, extra money for their classrooms. In our different organizations in our community, we have a very giving community, and we talk about it being low socioeconomic. That doesn't stop them from giving and really giving their resources, always celebrating our teachers. And, you know, you talk to any teacher in Putnam County, and I think all of them will tell you that, the entire community is there to support them.
Yeah. So you've emphasized quite a bit the importance of community, right? You led a campaign where you raised $300 million for the referendum for school revitalization. And so if you're looking at all of these small projects that you're doing where you're engaging in the community, it makes such a difference. What has been your strategy for building community support for such a significant investment in such a small place?
Well, I'll tell you, there's one word that describes it all, and that's trust. And, again, being an elected official, people have to trust when they vote for you, you're there to do the best thing for our community. And matter of fact, I'm writing a book called Trust Me, based on our success in the district. But, when we led this campaign, a lot of people were very suspicious of their taxes going up. What are they committing to? This is a 30-year commitment to pay off $300 million. So I made an effort, my team and I, to go visit different community groups. I visited every single faculty in our district, and we just talked about, what this would bring to our school district, but more importantly to our community. And I took a lot of hard questions, and there were a lot of people that were opposed to it. But it was interesting. In the fall of 2022, the economy, if you remember, started taking a downturn. We almost backed out and pulled it off the ballot because we just knew there's no way people are going to vote for that when they're having a hard time even buying groceries. But we felt like we had invested so much of our time and our emotional energy, and people trusted us, and we stayed with it, and it passed. But the number one thing that I promised to our voters to pass that was we would form an all citizens bond oversight committee to meet regularly to review all the expenditures, because I felt like we had to be accountable to the people who were paying that. So again, it all goes back to trust. And right now we have 5 schools under construction.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Rick Surrency, I just want to say Rick, but Dr. Rick Surrency, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for sharing your story from the field. As we're really elevating the stories around the country for the great work that's happening in public education. We want to thank you for what you're doing. And on behalf of IEI, we want to make certain that you are elevated and that your story is told. So if you have questions for anything that you heard today, reach out to Dr. Surrency. What I can tell you is that if you reach out, he will always reach back. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And any last words you want to share?
I just want to share one thing I'm probably most proud of in our district. When I came in 2016, we had a 54% graduation rate.
Oh, yes.
We initiated again some systematic approaches, looking at our data, looking at our practices, and this past 2025, our graduation rate was 96.6, and we went from 66 in the state to number 5 in the state. But most importantly, we were the highest improving district in the state of Florida. And I've done some research. We're the number 1 district in the nation
Kudos to you.
for improvement in graduation rates. So it all goes back to giving kids a purpose to be in school.
Yeah. So outcomes matter. That's what I believe, and that's my personal tag. Outcomes matter. So improved academic outcomes, improved retention rate, improved connections with the community, improved graduation rate, more opportunities for children. All of those things are a recipe for a wonderful organization. Thank you for being here.
Thank you
We
for having.
appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See you next time.